Physical art will continue to be collected and traded as is today. But I do see, for example, improvements in the way provenance is recognized and recorded, and that can be through a little device attached to particular art pieces in order to track the data, the transfers as time goes by. So that can be an improvement where we are merging trad artwork with digital. And again, there is a place for digital art because it comes with a lot of advantages. A lot more a lot more people are spending time online. A lot more artists create digitally directly. So if you think of jobs that artists have today, commercial jobs, a lot of them are working for magazines, for example, for newspapers, for big brands where they are creative for them. They're designers a lot of time. They create digitally by default, and that's how they've been shaped professionally in the past couple of years. So it's natural for them to continue on this path of creating digital art as well, especially because a lot of them are doing the commercial work, to pay the bills, and then they actually express their talent in art independently. And selling it with exchange art helps them be an independent kind of artist and earn another revenue stream and doing something that they actually enjoy and really, really love.
Welcome to Into the Forest with Pine. Today I have Larisa from Exchange Art. Larisa, can you kind of talk a little bit about what Exchange Art is and kind of what you guys are working on over there?
Hi, Jack. Thanks a lot for having me. So, Exchange Art is the main one-of-one and editions art on Solana. And we are the first art-focused marketplace that became multi-chain. Our goal is basically to open up the art market to as many artists and collectors as possible.
Awesome. Can you kind of talk a little bit about like what decisions you guys make to make your market specifically for artists rather than a generalized NFT market?
So we allow for one-of-ones and editions to be minted. We don't have a candy machine, for example. So if you would like to mint a generative art, a generative kind of project, a PFP project that has 10,000 pieces, and they all have kind of different traits and that sort of stuff, it would be really, really kind of difficult for you to do that because you'd kind of need to do it one by one, which would take an eternity. So we tailor everything to the needs of one artist, so the artists that are actually working on each piece, and they put quite an effort and thought into each piece that they do.
Awesome. So like how do you guys think about like kind of growing a community of artists on your platform and kind of what's your like strategy to kind of get artists on and kind of get them creating on your platform?
So there's a lot of communication and a lot of effort that has been put in onboarding artists on Exchange Art. We have started 3 years ago, so we started in 2021. And back then on Solana, there were only a handful of artists. We had to onboard most of the artists that are here today. And that took quite a lot of strategy and work and a lot of discussions that we had with a lot of artists to explain them the space, to explain them the blockchain, the technology, explain them everything that goes into having success in this community.
What do you think were kind of like the main like pain points or like what things do you think you had to overcome in kind of getting people onto using the blockchain and NFTs and stuff like that?
So I think the most important challenge that we had over the past 2 years is going past the branding that media awarded to the word NFT. Because there has been a lot of attention that has been paid to PFP projects or scams that happened in this industry. Now, we can make a parallel to any other industry where all sorts of fraudulent activity can happen. So it's nothing special and it's not different than any other industry out there, the crypto industry. It's just that media chose to focus a lot more on these negatives instead of actually highlighting the good work that happens and the technology and all the benefits that it brings. So what we have done to counter that was to bubble up as many amazing artists as possible and flag them to media. And some of them picked up on some of our stories. So we had, for example, one of the artists is a lead designer at Ferrari, and media picked up on his story. We had quite a lot of stories that have been picked up by media. We try to pitch quite a lot, in order to counter that and change the narrative, because I think it's really unfair towards all the people that are working in this industry of ours. The talent is amazing. So if you check exchange art, I think the kind of talent that is there, it's absolutely amazing. I am humbled every day when I see the pieces popping up and how much effort artists are actually putting into the art that they are creating and sharing with us. So this was the biggest hurdle to go past in the past 3 years. This branding of NFTs. A lot of artists didn't want to be associated with it. Now, as the time goes by, the more effort we put in to show people what art NFTs are about and all the benefits that come with it, then I feel that this narrative is slowly changing and more people are embracing it, which is absolutely great. And I'm looking to continue on this journey in the years to come because I'm convinced it will change a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is like kind of part of the industry right now is kind of overcoming those hurdles and kind of making
Yes.
sure people understand the whole vision.
Yeah.
What when you guys are kind of, because on the flip side of artists, there's also collectors. So how do you guys kind of see kind of getting collectors to come to your platform and kind of being a place where collectors want to come? Do you guys think about having the artists attract them, or kind of what's your ideas on
We're
this?
always working on both sides because it just makes sense to always balance the two. You can't really have a market with lots of sellers and very little buyers, or lots of buyers and very little sellers. So we're always working to balance that out and bring new collectors on board. And again, it's just about, another nuance and another angle on the discussion on why it would be nice to collect art on chain. What can you do with it? How can you display it? What are the advantages? How does the chain actually solve the provenance issue? That sort of stuff.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. What do you guys think about when it comes to kind of like community building between like building like, because I feel like a strong sense of a marketplace is like having people who kind of come there every day, show up and talk. Like, what do you guys think about when it comes to community building in your marketplace?
So community building has been our focus from day one. It's the only way in which we managed to bring exchange art at the level that it is today. It's with our community we grew step by step. Um, we are part of our team is every day in the community. We spend a lot of time in chats on Discord, on Twitter, public and DMs. We're always available. We have a live support on our page. We had, for the first year, we had, I think, almost every day we had a Twitter space in which people could come and interact and learn one from another. We still do a lot of Twitter spaces where we share what we're learning and how the market is going, and what tools can you use now to get more attention on your art. What are the challenges? Because this market is very dynamic, and every couple of months the conditions are changing. So artists and collectors are also adapting to the new conditions. So we spend a lot of time in the community. We share as much as we know, basically, about how to have success in this industry. And I think people really appreciated that. We're always very transparent as well. So whatever happened, we were always at the forefront of the situation, out there on Twitter and with everyone. Apologies. Um, Talking about the situation and what we've done to rectify it. We've always presented as and displayed as many artists as possible in our event. And we have done tens of real life events in the past 2 years. We're always trying to give as many opportunities to as many artists out there. So I think it's just a lot of time that we spend with them. We actually listen, and we build on their feedback. So every feature that has ever built on Exchange Art has been at the request of the community. And the features that will be built this year will just stay on the same ethos. The features that we are bringing this year to life are features that have been requested um, in the past, and we've seen quite a lot of demand for it. And we are working with on these features. We're working with the community, so we are taking a lot of feedback. We're discussing about how we want to implement it, and then sometimes we show designs to some of the artists that are interested in that feature. We get feedback, we reiterate, and then the feature shapes up to represent exactly what the community needs. And that's why I think community building has been at the very core at everything that we do. I mean, a market without the people, it's an empty market, and it makes no sense to have amazing architecture in a market and amazing infrastructure and the newest shiniest things if people are not using it. So we always focus on our users, on artists and on collectors.
Yeah, totally. So one thing that's kind of occurred to me is it like seems like at least especially kind of in maybe past like 6 months or so, there's been a real like building of like an artist community on Solana. And there always was one, but it seems like it's really getting stronger and attracting like a lot more artists. Like, how do you kind of think going forward, like how artist communities will be like online versus in person? Because I feel like in the past they were like more like city to city or like in person kind of communities. How do you kind of see that kind of playing out in the years to come?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I think people will always converge around the virtual because it opens up to this global audience, right? The buyers are globally. I can do an event in London, but it's essential for me to have it open globally to give everyone an opportunity to jump into that buying opportunity. So I think artists will converge, will kind of come together around the virtual events, be it an auction, being an edition, being whatever that commercial activity is. And communication as well, social interaction. We have live chats during auctions that make the auctions really quite fun. So I think people will always kind of converge towards this commercial layer and these commercial events. However, I find that real life events are also really helpful for artists. Um, and it's more about them actually meeting each other real life after they've been in contact for a while or after they've been following each other, right? So it was amazing to see, for example, John Lem at Breakpoint 1 year ago, yes, something like that, at the previous Breakpoint. When he was present, it was amazing to see how happy artists were to finally meet the person, the legend, and chat with him and get advice from him, and express their admiration for his work and how it inspires them and that sort of stuff. So real life events will always happen, and I think the more we grow the community, the more people will be in each of these bigger cities, and then I expect in smaller cities to kind of create small communities here and there as well. There are big communities already in Germany, for example, in Berlin, huge community, London, amazing community, Paris, the same, lots in the US as well. And I expect these sort of events to shape a bit more as the time goes by and people to connect more, especially because a lot of these artists have similar hobbies, similar interests as well, and they are learning from each other. So it's nice that for once they are not the only person in their family and in their group of friends that's spending time on this side of the internet, and that's facing some challenges here or some wins here, right? It's really nice for them to have someone to share them with and learn from, and just socialize with. So these
Yeah.
sort of real life events will continue to happen, and I expect them to grow more and more. Um, but at the end of the day, they will converge around the virtual kind of events where people from different parts of the globe will be able to interact.
Yeah, totally. So previously you were kind of talking about like selling collectors on like physical versus or digital versus physical art. Kind of how do you see the advantages to collectors in those two ways, and how do you kind of see taste changing or like kind of I don't know, what are your kind of thoughts on the way that collectors are going to look at these two different mediums?
So I don't think it's a one size fits it all to start with. I don't think one will win over the other. I think they'll coexist very happily. Um, and I think there's a place in the market and in people's rooms for both of them. So physical art will continue to be collected and traded as is today. But I do see, for example, improvements in the way provenance is recognized and recorded, and that can be through a little device attached to particular art pieces in order to track the data, the transfers as time goes by. So that can be an improvement where we are merging trad artwork with digital. And again, there is a place for digital art because it comes with a lot of advantages. A lot more time are spending, a lot more people are spending time online, a lot more artists create digitally directly. So if you think at jobs that artists have today, commercial jobs, a lot of them are working for magazines, for example, for newspapers, for big brands where they are creative for them. They're designers a lot of time. They create digitally by default, and that's how they've been shaped professionally in the past couple of years. So it's natural for them to continue on this path of creating digital art as well, especially because a lot of them are doing the commercial work, to pay the bills, and then they actually express their talent in art independently. And selling it with exchange art helps them be an independent kind of artist and earn another revenue stream and doing something that they actually enjoy and really, really love. So I think there will be a niche on this side with the advent of more artists doing this, creating art natively on iPads and on computers, digitally in general. And I think traditional art will continue to exist as well because there are artists that like to actually create using more physical kind of inputs, if you'd like, maybe paint, maybe canvas, maybe sculptures in all sorts of forms.
Yeah, totally. How do you, since like exchange art is kind of like a permissionless system, what has been like the most surprising way somebody's like used your platform, or like kind of what's the most interesting collection you've kind of seen people kind of put up on your thing, or something maybe you didn't expect people to use
Well,
exchange art in that
we're
way?
always surprised by the way people are actually using exchange art, to be fair. One of the initial ways was when we've seen one of the artists dropping an ebook on exchange art as an HTML, for example. We've seen artists actually pushing the boundaries of what we are building and finding creative ways to use it. And it surprises us. I don't remember another kind of example, but some of these situations pop up, and we are always kind of converging around our laptops and wonder at the creative ideas that they have with using our tools, which is absolutely amazing. I mean, we are blessed to have all these creatives around us and all that interest from them to push the boundaries of what we are building.
Yeah, it's always funny to see how people kind of push
I
these
agree.
permissionless systems.
Yeah, I agree.
So when building exchange art, what is like some of like the big lessons you guys have like kind of learned on building it, and like what have you, yeah, like what lessons have you learned in building it, and what like how do you, yeah, just what lessons have you learned in building it?
So building our up in the open, that's one of the interesting lessons that we learned. And I even remember actually Austin Federa at one of these Solana hacker houses mentioning that on stage, and I couldn't agree more. It helps a lot for us to build out in the open, and it helps a lot to kind of discuss the features that we have in mind, and then get a lot of feedback from artists. And that kind of leads me to the second point is building as requested, building stuff that people actually need. Because at the end of the day, we really want them to spend as much time on the platform, and we want to see them grow. It was really impressive. We were really, really impressed to see so many artists growing with us over the past 2 3 years, and then spreading their wings and selling on Christie's and Sotheby's and other marketplaces last year. We felt incredibly grateful for being a part of their journey at some point. I mean, you can look at this even as a way in which the platform has been used, right? It has been used as part of their career to kind of help them get to the next level, which we're incredibly grateful for.
Yeah, it's always awesome to see somebody like really gain success using one of your tools.
Yes.
So what are you guys kind of looking at going forward? Like, what are you guys thinking about in the coming years, and kind of what plans do you kind of have for exchange art?
That's always an interesting question to answer because I like to kind of keep surprises for the features that we're bringing in. But we are bringing a lot more features that are opening up the platform even more to the point where we would like it to become so Web 2 kind of, if you'd like to think at it that way, that users that don't want to learn about the blockchain can use it seamlessly, right? And the blockchain can just run processes behind it for them, and they can just see the experience and the benefits. And if you'd like to go in depth and actually understand the technology and push the boundaries and that sort of stuff, then you'll always have this part of exchange art that is optimized for this sort of stuff. So we'd like to open it as much as possible and make it as attractive for new artists and collectors to join us.
That's cool. Why did you decide to kind of join the industry in the first place? Like, what kind of compelled you to do that?
So it was back in 2016 when I first bought my first Ethereum. That was my entry into the crypto space. And then that's the moment when I actually started to learn a bit more about the industry, and slowly I've been following it over the past couple of years. So that's how I started. I just found the ethos really, really interesting, um, and how open it is, and democratizing finance. I used to work in traditional finance back then, and I saw how many inefficiencies there are when making payments, making cross border payments. There were a lot of inefficiencies that I saw that this technology of blockchain solving, and I really, really love that. So that's how that's how it started.
That's really cool. I think this is a good way to wrap up our episode. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks a lot for having me, Jack.